to add my.
Are you tired
No,
of sitting on the
we're going live.
sidelines watching opportunities pass you by? You know you have what it takes, but something's missing. It could be doubt, confidence, or fear that you're not representing your best self. Whatever it is, it stops now. It's time to align your passion with your purpose and seize the opportunities that await you. I want to see you get back in the game. So join me and my expert guests as we talk all things image, branding, and a bit of entrepreneurship. So if you're ready to gain insightful tips, tools, and strategies to help you amplify your presence and define your impact for greater success, sit with us as we talk about it.
Hello, and welcome back to the Image Connection Show. My name is Jenny Dewberry, and I am an international certified image consultant, personal brand strategist, and I am so happy that you have joined me here today. The Image Connection Show is a conversation-driven show where we explore how inner alignment influences your outer image, your personal branding, visibility, and your leadership presence. Everything we do, from how we speak to how we present ourselves, quietly shape how we are perceived, and the opportunities that we allow ourselves to step into are influenced by that as well. And today I have with me, and she'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, Mihika Patel.
Mihika.
I'm sorry,
Mihika.
Mihika Patel. Mihika is a speaker, coach, and the founder of One Mighty Mama. I love that. I love that name. Where she helps high-performing women reduce overwhelm and lead with clarity through simple, repeatable systems. Her work bridges the gap between how women show up externally and how they feel internally. So success feels sustainable and not exhausting. So again, she is here to talk to us about that and help us unpack what that looks like when we decide to show up as our true self, so to speak. So help me welcome Mihika to the show. Welcome, Mihika.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today, Jenny.
Thank you, and thank you for helping me to pronounce your name.
Absolutely, you're not the first, and you certainly won't be the last.
It's very important that we are intentional about trying to at least get it right, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, thanks for joining us. The name of your business is One Mighty Mama. How'd you come up with that name? I'm just curious.
It's I was raised by what I like to call the OG Mighty Mama. She was mighty in her own sense, and she was the inspiration behind me starting my own business. And so after juggling around with a few different names, the word mighty just really jumped out at me. And I think it's because it means so much. And Mama is because I started off my business coaching mothers specifically, and now I've kind of expanded that to high performing women in general. So it just seemed like a good fit. And I think Mama gives it a nice little slang. It's not like mighty mom or mother. I think has a little bit of a little fun twang to it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And so I mentioned briefly what it is that you do, but can you explain on your own who you work with and what your work looks like when you're working with that woman or that person?
Absolutely. So I work with high-performing women, basically women who are just carrying too much in what I like to call the mental backpack. And we're all familiar with it. We all probably call it different things, but it's all the responsibilities that are, cycling through our head, whether it's home life, work life, kid life, mom life. And then on top of that, somehow managing to keep up with our own personal health and wellness in all the different ways. So it encapsulates a lot, but what ends up happening is that toll that the weight of that backpack has on us. And what I like to call is the quiet cost of when we are carrying too much. And I refer to that as losing your mightiness, because mightiness is not necessarily a physical strength. I call it, I refer to it as a mental strength, because that mental strength, that discipline, the consistency, that is what will take you to the next level. So how we maintain that mental strength is keeping the weight of that mental backpack in balance.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And you mentioned we all suffer, or not suffer, but we all have gone through moments where we've not quite identified ourselves, or that we are trying to fit in a box because we really don't know where we fit, when we're starting off. Or even
Yes.
so, as we progress, we don't know where we
Mhm.
fit. So for
Yes, yes.
you, what got you through those moments, if you ever had those moments, and what did you find on the other side of that, which I guess it would be your work, but if you can just kind of tell us a little bit about your journey in that.
Yeah, I tried a lot of different things, right? And a lot of it initially was, kind of the traditional route, right? Where, you maybe hire a coach or you buy some online course or you read a book. And those were all helpful to an extent, but what I truly found made the biggest difference was looking inside versus
Yes.
looking outside.
Mhm.
Those external sources of quote unquote help were not very effective. Those internal sources of help, what you already have within you, that's where real change comes to be. And the problem here is that many people don't take the time to look inside, right? Like we don't stop, we don't breathe. We're kind of always connected or tethered at the hip with our phone. We're always feeding our mind this information that we don't stop long enough to hear what it's saying because there's just so much external noise. So what I did was I went through a digital detox. I stopped and I put a pause intentionally on the times when I would be attached to my phone. I started journaling. I started thinking, okay, well, let me ask myself some questions, do some guided prompting, and really figure out what was going on in there. And first, it took a long time just to kind of detox yourself from that noise. So the process takes a little bit of time, but in a little bit of time, I was able to hear what I was saying, and that was actually informing me of what I needed, and that helped me determine what my next step should be.
Exactly. So sitting with oneself, I think I just talked about that with someone last week. That's where it all begins. You have to know what's going on the inside in order to be able to,
Yeah.
excuse me, able to evolve and grow and really identify who we are and what it is that we really want in our lives. So that's good. Just sitting again, take some time to sit with self. And as you said, it's not going to happen overnight. It's a
Mhm.
journey. It's a journey. And the internal and external, the alignment of that can only happen when you've taken the time to work on the inside. Now, I'm all about internal image and external image because I know that together they work together.
Oh, they
Yeah,
work hand in hand, yes.
yeah. One does not, you can't have a put together external image when you're fragmented and misaligned on the inside and in the
Mhm.
mind. Yeah, we're busy running around doing all the things for family, for work, for the business, and we don't know who we are sometimes. So you talk about aligning how we feel internally with how we show up, so to speak, externally. What
Yes.
does that look like? In,
So I think really what it looks like is, one, getting in tune, right? Sitting with yourself and letting yourself inform you what your next step should be. So for me, that kind of looked like, hey, I need to make a change in my surrounding, in my environment. Um, and this was during COVID. In 2020 and going into 2021. And so it was a very stressful period for a lot of people, right? I wasn't the only one. But that stress just it took a big toll on me. And so the change that I realized I needed was a little change of scenery. And so I quit my job. I resigned from my position at the time. And initially it was like, okay, well, I'll take a little break, right? Just a few months, and then
Mhm.
I'll get my resume back into tip top shape and we'll be back in the job market. Um, I did not think I would become a business owner for sure. That was really not in the cards, not it wasn't the intention. But wouldn't you know, I guess that's what was in the cards for me. And so I started my first business instead of cleaning up my resume after a few weeks. And I haven't looked back. And so for me, that's what it was. I needed that fulfillment to
Yeah.
come from something different. And I needed to put myself in a service role, right? I wanted to give back. But I didn't quite know what that looked like or how to go about doing it. There really wasn't much of a template to follow, if you will. I mean, I feel like now lots of women are out there doing this kind of thing, and men, but I didn't really know anyone. No one in my circle was doing it, right? In my circle, it was like, okay, you graduate college, you start the job, and you do that for 40 some years, and then you retire. And, congratulations, you've lived your life. But
And
I'm sorry.
I was gonna let you finish, but I said people don't understand that. And your story sounds a little bit like mine. I sold my salon, I had a life altering situation. And I said, I went back into the salon, which is where it all started. I worked in corporate years ago, but I went back into the salon and I just didn't feel like it was aligned with me anymore. Something just kept tugging. So I sold my salon and I moved 2,300 miles away from my hometown.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, you needed a really big change of scenery.
Yeah, really, yeah, and
I
it
love
helped.
it. I love it.
Took a year, to sit with myself so I can really tap into what it is that I wanted to do and who I was, really who I was. So I do know that is very important. And then shifting and moving out of certain environments helps that to happen. Yeah. And so you talk about, when you and I talked before, signals of burnout. And I think I may have had that. You may have had that. So what does that look like and perhaps feel like?
For me, burnout was interesting. It was the quiet symptoms, right? It didn't come and like bang down on my door. It was, the silent, kind of slithered into my life, didn't even realize it. And I talk a lot about Sour Patch Kids because that for me was the symptom that really made me stop and think, like, God, why are there Sour Patch Kids everywhere I go? In the car, in my desk, in my nightstand. And I'm like, what does this represent? And then it occurred to me that was my coping mechanism for the stress and for, just all the overwhelm that I was experiencing. And I mean, of course, Sour Patch Kids are, it's not like eating an apple. That would be wonderful.
Right.
I wish that was my coping mechanism.
Yeah.
But, I had the dental bills to pay for it. It was very detrimental. But I was gaining lots of weight. Like the physical symptoms were there. And then on the mental wellness side, the symptoms were that I was really snippy. I was short. I'm a very even-keeled, calm person in general, right? Catch me on a good day, and that's just the version of me you'll see 99.9% of the time. 0.01% of the time I get a little snippy, but this was getting a little out of hand. Like it was almost becoming a daily occurrence. I was yelling at the kids. I was short with all the people around me that I loved and cared about the most. And it wasn't me. And I think that's the part that snuck up on me. Initially, it would happen like once every couple of months. And then it would happen, more and more frequent until it became almost a daily or weekly occurrence. And that's when I realized, I'm like, something is not right. Something's got to change here because otherwise we're heading down, dangerous territory here. And so that for me was the quiet signs. It took time. It probably took the space of 7 to 8 months after, going through a life-altering situation.
Yeah, I can relate. And there are so many women that are operating right there in that space that you just discussed, that you just talked about. Short-tempered, not really moving and working, but not really being as productive as they should be or could be, even with their families and their children, because there's that misalignment and they're detached. They're so unhappy with where they are, but they haven't identified that yet. They just probably feel like this is how it's supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm not supposed to do anything else, again, because they haven't taken that time to sit down. What is one simple step a woman could take if she's feeling that way to help her, move past that or start the journey of moving past that? Because again, none of this happens overnight, but.
Right. Oh yeah. So I like to say, hey, if you have 10 minutes, you can start turning the tide on this. And again, this is not an overnight thing, but this could be the beginning of that change, right? The Titanic doesn't turn around immediately. It takes, a few degrees at a time. And this is just the beginning of that, because that takes concerted effort over consistently over a long period of time. So that 10 minutes, it's best to spend that 10 minutes first thing in the morning. And I call it the first 10, which is sparsing up the first 10 minutes of your day. Because when we wake up, our mind is in Now, I'm not a neurologist or, anything of the sort, but I've done some research into this. Our minds are particularly vulnerable at, when we first wake up, right? Coming out of that slumber and then being in the awake state. And so our mind is particularly vulnerable. What you feed it in that moment is going to, be carried with you. So if you're going to take that 10 minutes, that's the time when that 10 minutes is like super powered, right? As opposed to 10 minutes any other time of the day. So the 10 minutes, how I suggest and how I work with my clients to spend that 10 minutes is take about 3 minutes to focus on your mind. And what I mean by this is just kind of clear your mind, do some deep breathing, think about, what you're grateful for, right? And then take 3 minutes for your body. Now, this is again some more deep breathing, but a little bit of stretching. Kind of get the crunchies out. Get the blood flowing again. Sometimes just standing up and like touching your toes or stretching out or doing some trunk twists can be very effective and very one, it'll help you wake up, and two, it'll just kind of get the blood flowing back through your body, right? Because once you hit a certain age, you wake up and you're like, okay, I don't feel like I'm in my 20s anymore. Things are starting to hurt, and there's pains. And the last 4 minutes are for focus. So it's mind, body, and focus. 3 minutes for mind and body, 4 minutes for focus. Now, focus is where you really kind of rein all of this in. Like, what does this mean for me today? Set your intention for the day. What's the word that is going to, carry you through today? So, for example, today, my word, knowing that I would be here with you, spending, some time this evening, my word was to be present. That I wanted to be present in this conversation, not thinking, hey, what's going on upstairs? My daughter's at a volunteer activity. My son is playing basketball outside. There's a lot of hustle and bustle. I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking here so I can be present with you. And so to figure out what your intentional word is, and then figure out what your top 3 priorities are for the day. And I think that even just thinking about it, writing it down is, again, a great step because now you're documenting it. But even just thinking about it is hugely beneficial, and can really get your day started off on the right foot, as opposed to what I think most people do, which is a lot of doom scrolling in the morning, which is filling your mind with noise. And that noise includes comparison, right? Maybe you're seeing that other woman who's in a similar situation to you, but I'm like, how does she look so good? How does she, maintain such a nice house? How is she so successful at work? And here, I can't seem to like get 2 things put together and, make any sense at all. So get out of that comparison loop, right? Like, why would you want to feed that information? Because then you're almost starting your day behind the 8 ball. And that's no way to start your day.
No way at all. But you're right. When you're waking up and, I've been through programs, don't grab for your phone, be intentional. And then again, think about what you're going to do for the day. Set the tone for the day. And these small steps that I took in programs, the program that I took was, if I pick up my phone, don't open it, but feel the weight of it. Just be, again, intentional and conscious about the things that you're doing. And that really does help from the time you stand up, doing the bristles of a toothbrush, all that type of stuff. It sounds silly, but it really works. Those things work.
It does, yeah.
They do. And you talk about shifting from reactive living to intentional leadership. So can you touch on that a bit?
Absolutely. And so the first 10 is part of that, right? As opposed to sitting there reacting to the doom scroll, reacting to the news, right? The negativity that's, there's just so much of it in the world today. I want you to start your day thinking, okay, what's going well in my life, right? What am I grateful for? And I want you to stop, and I don't want you to, go beyond. I want you to go beyond my health, my family, my partner. I want you to go beyond that, because those are all wonderful things, but that's 3 things. And then what do you do on day 4? Right. You just cycle through them over and over. Then that becomes a less fruitful activity. So I like to talk about gratitude hunting, which is basically the concept of being on the hunt during the day for things that you're grateful for. And so it could be something really small. It could be something like, hey, someone let me cross the road at the intersection that I was crossing the parking lot, and someone stopped their car so I could cross. It could be something really small, right? It could be like, hey, I got I got the last big jar or the big container of strawberries that I wanted, and they're just the right size or in the right ripeness. But when you move from that reactive state to proactive, it helps you become what I like to call the CEO of your life, right? These are the seeds. How do you get into that space where you are now not reacting to what's going on around you, but rather dictating the things that you want to be doing? Those things are still happening, right? We don't have any magical powers to make the world become positive, or to change the things that are in our surroundings that are not within our control, but we're instead acknowledging what we do have control over. And when you start your mind space at the beginning of the day thinking about that, I mean, that takes you a long way. And it really just sets yourself up for success, because that's what you want, right? We don't want the end of the day to come by and be like, man, that was a terrible day. We want to the end, like when you go to bed, you want to think, okay, you know what? I did 1, 2, 3, and 4 things, and those were all fantastic, and they all filled my cup. And I was able to, complete all my responsibilities to the best of my ability, and I am happy and satisfied with them.
Yeah. And that's that, again, feeling accomplished, whether it's a small task, it doesn't matter. A win is a win. If you did reach on the shelf and get those great peaches, the last jar, or
the one I'm like, all these strawberries are mushy. Where are the good strawberries?
Yeah. Hard to find sometimes, right? Yeah. So that's good. Those are good steps that someone could take, again, to just small steps to help them on their journey to living intentionally, and then having that show up in leadership and how they lead, and actually how they feel within themselves when leading. I always say that I feel that people should lead with heart. And you really can't do that if you're scrambling and concerned, again, about all the other activities of the day and what's going on in your personal life. You have to be able to compartmentalize. What would you say to someone that all of the advice that you just gave is great, but what if they don't know how to find that first? Where would they go to find the first? How to take that first step in that? It's
So there's a lot of things. One exercise I go through with all of my clients is, I want you to picture your worst day, right? What are you able to commit to on your worst day? So this is the day where maybe you're feeling a little under the weather, you're tired, whatever it may be. What are you, and you make a goal, right? Let's say your goal is, let's keep it simple, a promotion at work. What can you do even on your worst day to work towards that promotion? And so that could look like, hey, maybe setting up some coffees with, some people in management or in that area to learn more about, hey, what's going on? How do I need to position myself to be in the best position to get this job? Or maybe there's a certification that you need to get, so you need to spend some time studying. So on your worst day, what can you do? So maybe that looks like, hey, I can cover 1 chapter on my worst day. And that is what you commit to. That is the habit, the system that I want you to create, the one that you can commit to even on your worst day. Because we're not here to operate in our, optimum state all the time, because good days and bad days, they come hand in hand, right? And so if we want to do something for consistently for a long term, for a long time, then it has to be something that you can commit to every single day, whether, on the days when you're feeling it and the days when you're not feeling it. So that's why I always ask them to start what I call MVP, minimum viable product. It's a product management term, but I kind of use it for this. Like, hey, what's the most basic version of this system that we can kind of push out to market? And this is the most basic version. And I want you to use that. I want you to commit to it. Now, hey, on a given day, if you wake up on the right side of the bed and everything's going your way and you're like, I want to do 2 chapters, knock yourself out. Do 2 chapters, but commit to the bare minimum of doing 1 chapter a day, right? Or 1 section or whatever.
Yeah.
Commit to making that progress every single day, no matter what, right? I set up my clients with trackers. I'm like, nothing, really basic rudimentary stuff, dates, here's the task, and then you just check off, right? And this is not homework. I'm not anyone's teacher. We're all adults. So I'm like, something for you to use to track your own progress. And what you're going to find over time, right? And I say for daily habits, give it about 30 days, right? 28 days, I think, is the official to set a habit. Give it about 28, 30 days. And what you'll notice is that your body will automatically, your mind will automatically be like, oh, it's 7 p.m. I got to sit down and get, crank out this chapter. Or, I'm ready to get to bed, but I didn't do my chapter. I better sit down and just, this is the bare minimum that I've committed to. I'm going to do it. And that is how you start these big habits, right? You commit to it for 30 days. And then let's say you build it up, right? Then you're like, oh, one wasn't so bad. I can do 2 or 3. And then that becomes your floor, right? The minimum. And then that's how you just keep compounding on that. But you have to start small. And I think the problem in society in general today is we want everything immediate, right? Immediate satisfaction.
Yes.
We can't seem to wait, right? We want to get to that point where we're like 6 to 12 months ahead, but we want to be in that point today. Right. And I'm like, well, the people that you're seeing out there who are doing all these cool big things, they also started somewhere small, right?
Yeah.
But that was under the surface. Nobody was paying attention to them until it became big, until that momentum became like undeniable. So how do you get to that space where your momentum is undeniable?
Yeah.
You got to start small.
That's right. I love that. There's a saying, I don't remember it verbatim, but the mountain always looks smaller. Always looks taller from the bottom. But when you're climbing it, just climbing it. Once you get to the top, you see it's not that bad, but that intentional habit and taking that action in those small steps are going to get you where you want to go in time. We like you said,
all with good time. Yes,
it's all in good time. So today I am talking with Mihika Patel. She is a coach, a speaker, and she is the founder of One Mighty Mama. So let the audience know how they can get in touch with you if they would be seeking your service. What are some ways that they can reach you?
Absolutely. So you can reach me on my website, onemightymama.com, and that's the number 1. But really the best way to reach me is through my social. So LinkedIn or Instagram. So at LinkedIn, you can find me at Mihika Patel, on Instagram at onemightymama_. And those are really the best ways. I am pushing out content at least 4 to 5 times a week. And I like to talk directly to you, right? It's no fluff. And, really sharing how we can be the mightiest version of ourselves, because it's a lot simpler than you think.
It is. From my perspective and, my experience and my journey, when I think about where I am today, when I first started, it was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? But as you said, you take those small steps, those imperfect steps, and then you'll get to where you want to be. Exactly. And it'll never be perfect. Yeah, I was packing up some things today, and I came over the book, do it while afraid, or do something like that. So
even if you're afraid, something like that.
Yeah, so that's all you have to do. We're going to take a quick break, and then we will be back to talk with Mihika.
You're not just building a career, you're building a reputation and that of your business. At People Power Consultancy, we coach ambitious professionals to refine their image and shape a personal brand that opens doors. Because the way you show up is your message. If you're tired of blending in, second-guessing your presence, or feeling unseen, this is your moment to stand out with purpose and polish. Visit peoplepowerconsultancy.com to start your transformation. Your next level has a look. Let's define it.
We are back with Mihika, having a great conversation about living intentionally. Intentionally, and leading with intention, so to speak. And we're talking about internal and external alignment and image. So, talk to me about your perspective on the internal image and then the external image, and how does one embody that, in your opinion, or in your expertise?
So I think if your inner image, and this is kind of dictated by your inner voice, right? The narrative that you're telling yourself. If that inner voice is telling you things like, Mihika, you're not worthy. Mihika, you're just not cut out for this. Like, just, I don't know why you even bother, because you're just not good at this at all. And there was a time in my life where those were the voices that I was hearing, that I was not capable, I was not worthy of success, and that, I didn't have it in me, right? I wasn't cut out for some of this stuff. I remember there was a certification exam that I was taking for my position, for my job, and gosh, I mean, this was like spanning like two different jobs, like two different companies that I was working for, and I was still, putting this certification together. 3 exams, I passed them on 7 attempts. So 4 times I failed, and it was every single time it was heartbreaking. And what ends up happening is when you start hearing that voice, right? And then you start seeing results that reflect what that voice is telling you. What I didn't realize is it was showing up in my external image, right? It was showing up in, me not standing tall, me kind of hunching down. And, when people spoke to me, my voice would be very timid. It wasn't really articulating what I felt in a very strong, positive way. And so that was something that took some time. And so I think it was when I made those big shifts in my life, those big changes, I started walking into rooms and I started doing that inner work, right? And that inner work was like, Mihika, you are totally worth it. Like, you've got this, hold your head up high, get the chin up, and you go do this thing. And so for me, that looked like, especially in the beginning days of my business, it was networking events, right? Walking into rooms where I know absolutely nobody. And to make matters worse, they all seem to know each other. And I'm like, how can I get into this, like get in on this, like this cool group that you've got going on here? Like, I want to be friends with you guys, and I want to, get in on these jokes. And there were so many events after event after event for months where I would walk in and I'm just like, God, I do not belong. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to fake it till I make it. And I'm going to go in there and I'm going to manage those expectations, my own expectations. And here's what I did. I told myself I would have 2, maybe 3 conversations. If after that, I still felt like this was clunky and awkward, I gave myself permission to leave. But wouldn't you know it, after those 2 to 3 conversations, I'm like, oh, I can do this. Like, let's have a 4th, let's have a 5th. And before you know it, I was one of the last people to leave because I'm having these deep conversations with people. And I think this applies to just about anything else, where the narrative that you tell yourself shows up in how you carry yourself, right? In your voice, in your posture, in how you speak about yourself, right? Some of those negative affirmations that I was telling myself were showing up in my words. Right? I would have conversations with my boss and I'm just like, I know I need the certification for my promotion, but there's just no way. So, just keep me as a staff position. I'm never going to cut it in a senior role or in a manager role. Like, don't even bother. And even at times they would come back to me. They're like, why are you talking about yourself like that? And I'm like, well, look at the evidence, right? Like, I don't make this stuff up. Like, look at that exam. I didn't pass it again. Like, this is not for me. And so I think that's when you have to start, that's the inner work, right? The inner work is those positive affirmations. And it sounds so silly. And sometimes people are like, is it really that simple? I'm like, it really is. It really is. But it takes time, right? You telling yourself some affirmations today is not going to make you wake up tomorrow like, oh, the world is all bright and sunny and, filled with all sorts of rainbows. It takes time.
It takes time
to get out of the bloom.
Effort. And again, what we tell ourselves is who we become or what we become. So
Exactly. Yeah. If you believe you can, you will. If you believe you can't, then you won't.
That's true. So true. When you have the networking events, I know that can be intimidating. Like you said, entering into a room where you know absolutely no one, and no one is born with the gift or the skill to work a room. You have to, again, like anything else, you have to go show up. And that's why you see the people talking and laughing with others in the room. And, and you're standing on the side like a wallflower because you have to be in the room. You have to get in the rooms in order to make those connections and feel comfortable. And it, once you do it a few times, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I actually love it. I love it.
I know. Now I purposely seek out rooms where I don't know anybody because I'm like, okay, let's see what we can do today.
Yeah, and then you're testing your confidence level too.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a great confidence booster because you're like, look, I didn't know anybody walking in, and now, not like I know everybody, but I know
mhm.
a few people now, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, and then you'll meet someone else. You'll meet another
Yep,
connection and another
exactly.
connection. So yeah, and you talk about, the external image, posture, so to speak. Your nonverbal communication. You can tell yourself all day long what you are and who you are and how great you are. But again, as you said, what you really truly think, it shows on the outside. You're shrinking because you really don't believe in yourself. Uh, you're you're shrinking because you don't believe in yourself. You are slumped over. You're slow pacing. You're not making eye contact. You're not listening
Mhm.
effectively. All of that plays a role in our presence, in our image, and then how we lead. And when we talk about leadership, we're not just talking about those in the C-suite or being in a C-suite. We're just talking about in your everyday actions as a professional. As a professional. So we have to be mindful of how we show up, and that who we say we are is actually aligned with who we show the world, or what we show the world. And as in my work, I know that first impressions are powerful. So I work with my clients to ensure that when they walk in a room, not just by how they're dressed, they're dressed, but that's very important, but how they carry themselves, because it doesn't matter what
Mm.
they have on. If they're not walking in that space with confidence, if they're not, making eye contact, looking approachable, the outfit really doesn't matter,
Oh,
because
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, they truly haven't positioned themselves to make those meaningful connections. But first impressions for me is huge. It's
Oh, and
huge.
they're lasting. Yeah.
And lasting. And so, and though we can sometimes turn them around, it's difficult. So I always say, why not just,
It's
do it
time.
right
Yeah,
the first time? Do it right the first time.
exactly. Do it right the first time.
That's right. Yeah. So do you have any advice well, not any advice, but any resources? Say someone was wanting to um, read up on you or something that you do. Do you have any resources
So
for
I am in the process of putting together a blog because I've been hearing, people, they're like, we want this in a little more digestible format, right? Like not having to sift through all of my social media. And I'm also working on a book. So keep your eyes open for that. That should be 2027. But what I did do recently is I self-published. I knew 2026 was going to be a big year for me. I just
Mhm.
didn't realize that this is what it would end up looking like. But I self-published my Mighty Reflections journal. Now, this is just like a guided journal, and
Mhm.
these are a lot of the same prompts that I was using when I was coming out of my terrible life-changing event that
Yeah.
happened. Which I think I'm gonna really borrow because sometimes I don't wanna dig into that, and this is a
Mhm.
fantastic way of
That's it.
addressing it and its
Yeah.
impact without getting into the details. But,
Absolutely.
um, but it's a 90-day reset, and that was intentional, right? Like, should I
Yeah.
make this a year long, a 6 month? But I'm like, 90 days is just enough to
Yeah.
really bite your teeth into
Mhm.
and start getting, building up that momentum, right? And so it's not very thick, as you can see. It's about 50
Mhm.
pages, but there's pages in here like this gratitude page. And this is just a weekly page, right? There's no commitment to be in here every single day, but once a week, just check in. And if you do want to do some things on a daily basis, that's great. I put in a page that this is one of my favorite pages. It's what I like to call the Be Grateful page. And this is just something simple where you can go in and you just color in one of these honeycombs
Nice.
every time you think about what you're grateful for, right? We're not putting too much pressure on ourselves to actually write down what we're grateful for,
Mhm.
but the idea is to get your mind into that space and into
Yeah.
that habit of of thinking about the things that you're grateful for. And I have a mood tracker in here, and it comes with stickers, so you can kind of like red, yellow, green. You can put in how you're feeling on any given day. With the idea being that you take a step back at the end of the month and you almost use this as a little bit of a diagnostic tool, right? This
Mhm.
is information, right? Information is good.
Oh
And
yeah.
what we want to know is what those trends are, right? If you are going to be looking inside of yourself, right, and creating that alignment internally and externally, you have to know what the heck is going on inside of you.
That's
And
right.
sometimes it's not enough to take a blank journal and be like, okay, I'm just going to put everything in here and hope that something comes out of it that's useful and actionable. This is not only useful, but also actionable. So here's what it looks like. And the idea is at the end of the month, you can look at this and say, do I have more greens, more yellows, more reds? Are there clusters of them? Are there certain times of the month where I'm feeling particularly happy or particularly not happy? Or am I just feeling kind of blah? And then what was going on during those days? You know, sometimes, especially with women, there's hormonal changes, right, that happen over the course of the month. Is it related to that? Or is it, hey, I had a big presentation coming up and this is, you know, those were the days where I was feeling particularly stressed. So take a look and think what was going on those days. Because again, the answer is to look inside. Sometimes we need a little bit of guidance on how we can look inside. And for me, guided journaling has always been so integral. So asking myself questions like, not only what am I grateful for, but hey, what are the things that made me stop and think? What's one fear or worry that feels different for me, right? These are some of the questions that I'm asking at the beginning and then at the end. And the idea is to compare and contrast your answers. And hopefully that sheds a little bit of light on some areas of your life that may need a little updating or changing, or you know, some new systems that you need to implement in your life to help you get to that point. And so this has been really integral for my development. And so you can find this on one of my websites called mightyreflections.com. And so that is where you can go to get this. I have a motherhood edition as well as a leadership edition. And the motherhood edition is really meant for pregnant, postpartum women, right? Especially in that stage where you're like, okay, I don't know my top from my bottom. It's actually Mighty Reflections with an S at the end. But yeah, it's for that integral time in your life where you're like, okay, I need some support. And this is how you can start giving yourself that support.
That's good. That's good. That's a great tool. It's a great tool. So.
It's been super helpful for me and for so many other people that I've worked with, and you know, keynotes that I give, and then companies end up buying a lot of these just to give out to their employees. And feedback that I've gotten has really been that it's helped them develop that habit, right? This is meant to be a Kickstarter.
That's good. I like the gratitude section of that, because we don't realize how many good things happen to us sometimes in life when we're busy. So if you can sit down and, you know, identify those, maybe not even identify them, but learn about those moments of gratitude and what you can be grateful for. We have so much positive in our lives, again, but we don't realize it because we're so busy doing all the things. So I think that's great. Yeah, I think that's great for someone. So again, you can find this on Mihika's website. It is Mihika.
No, it's mightyreflections.com.
Mightyreflections.com.
Yep. And then my other website is onemightymama.com.
onemightymama.com. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Do you have anything that you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I always like to leave with a message of positivity, that you have the power within you to make all these changes. You don't necessarily need anybody, whether it's me or anyone else, but you have the power within you. But if you want some accountability and some support on that journey, I would love to be a part of it.
Yes, accountability. That's what we all need sometimes. So it makes a huge difference in journaling. And then your tool there, it also helps us to become more accountable, because once we start writing and once we start doing these activities that you have in your journal, you want to go revisit that. You just feel compelled to keep going back to doing it. And so that's, you know, accountability.
It's fun. I mean, when was the last time as a grown woman are you coloring little boxes in? Are you taking little stickers? And like, I wanted to make it a little more like tactual and, you know, just do things that we probably haven't done since we were very young.
Very young.
Exactly, like elementary age, right? Like coloring, I can't remember last time I've colored in anything.
So therapeutic, girl.
I wanted to make it a little more fun, right? Bring a little bit of that youthfulness back to us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been great. Again, thank you for joining us. This is Mihika Patel. I am Jenny Dewberry, the host of the Image Connection Show. I am a certified international image consultant and personal brand strategist. You can contact me on my website, peoplepowerconsultancy.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn as Jenny Dewberry. Instagram is at JennyD_peoplepower. And I have a gift for you. So if you haven't gotten my Why Image Matters, Why You Should Care guide, then you can also get that on my website. So there may be a QR code. If not, you can find it on my website. So thanks again for joining us. I hope you took away some tools and tips that you can apply to your journey immediately. And again, thank you, Mihika, for being here. It was great.
Thank you so much for having me, Jenny. I really appreciate the conversation. This was fun.
It was a joy. Until next time, I will see you here on the Image Connection Show.
Thanks for tuning in to the Image Connection Show. We truly appreciate you being here. We hope you'll join us again. And don't keep it to yourself. Invite a friend to tune in too. If you're ready to gain insightful tips, tools, and strategies to enhance your image, brand, and help you along your entrepreneur journey, this is where you want to be. I'll see you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, keep showing up with purpose, presence, and power.